In the approximately 3.7 billion years that Earth has harbored life, it has experienced its fair share of some pretty messed up stuff. This has included asteroid impacts, solar storms, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, fires, droughts, and everything in between. Most of the time, such events don't actually have any profound impacts on life, but a few times they do, resulting in an extinction event, a widespread and rapid loss in biodiversity. So far, scientists have identified about 31 extinction events that have taken place in the last few billion years. Of those 31, there are 5 that really stick out in terms of devastation and scale, referred to as the Big Five. These represent the worst extinction events the world has ever seen, with each one responsible for the eradication of at least 50% of all species. Of these 5, the most famous is by far the KT extinction event, better known as the day the dinosaurs died. This extinction was heralded by a giant asteroid that struck Earth with the force of 10 billion World War II atomic bombs, bringing the reign of the dinosaurs to a close and killing roughly 75% or more of every single species alive at that moment. It's often regarded as being the most sudden mass extinction event to have ever occurred. To many, namely the mainstream public, it's the worst event life has ever endured. But this isn't really the case. Of the Big Five extinction events, the KT extinction was not the deadliest, and perhaps surprisingly, it's not even close to being number 1. That title goes to an event that saw so much life die that it took Mother Nature about 5 times longer to fully recover from it than it did following the asteroid. This was the Permian-Triassic extinction, also known as the Great Dying. To go back and witness this apocalyptic event, you'd have to travel approximately 251.9 million years into the past, which would have brought you to the final days of the Permian Period. Even before the Great Dying had begun, things weren't going so well. The world was still recovering from yet another extinction event that had taken place about 10 million years prior, the Capitanian extinction. The general state of the climate was quite messed up as well. Earth was significantly hotter than it is today, and near the equator, it's thought that the temperature could sometimes soar to around 74 degrees Celsius or 165 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to literally cook a chicken. Thanks to the geography of Pangaea, with nearly every landmass strung together, large swathes of land were simply inhospitable and brutally dry. A giant mountain range cut across the supercontinent, depriving many areas of rain and creating pockets of death and contributing to major droughts. What caused the Doomsday event? For a long time, paleontologists were aware that something unprecedented happened during the end of the Permian, but no one knew exactly what had transpired. Many different ideas were put forth, including asteroid impacts, interstellar dust storms, and even that the weather was just that brutal. It wasn't until very recently that paleontologists finally came to the conclusion that the perpetrator all along had been volcanic eruptions. These ones were unlike anything ever experienced by humanity, and their mark on Earth can still be clearly seen today in Russia. It's there that you can find the Siberian Traps, a sprawling region of volcanic rock that covers an area equal to 68% of Europe's total landmass. The scale of such eruptions would have been hard to comprehend, with estimates suggesting they were around 4 million times larger than the Mount St. Helens eruption, and even outclassed Yellowstone's largest discharge, having spewed out 4,000 times the ejected volume. The eruption of the Siberian Traps wasn't actually all that violent, but was instead more gentle but persistent and massive, with consistent giant lava flows that took place over an extended period, not a few years or even a few decades, but rather hundreds of thousands of years, possibly millions. The most recent estimates suggest a duration of around 200,000 years. Multiple ways to die. During this time, the eruptions slowly turned Earth into a literal hell. Those closest to the eruptions got the shortest end of the stick, but the rest of the world was by no means off the hook. Throughout this ordeal, volcanoes were letting out untold amounts of carbon dioxide, ash, sulfur, and chlorine, which together contributed to well over 200,000 gigatons of erupted material, more than 1,000 times the weight of Mount Everest. This sheer volume led to multiple disastrous effects, and each one likely could have been considered an extinction event in its own right. The most obvious was extreme heat. Earth was basically transformed into an unrecognizable wasteland, with global average surface temperatures reaching above 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. To put that into perspective, the current global average is just 15 degrees Celsius or 59 degrees Fahrenheit. The heat contributed to forest fires separate from the ones created by the lava flows. In fact, fires started by the heat are believed to have been directly responsible for destroying the very last remnants of coal swamps. The forest fires and heat also made aridification much worse, as slowly but surely, much of the world turned into a shrubland or desert biome. Even if you managed to find shelter, you'd still have to deal with the constant spewing of noxious gases that slowly suffocated the world, with oxygen plummeting to around 15%. Despite the atmosphere currently being at 21%, it only takes a drop to 19.5% to render humans oxygen deficient. Things were actually more grim for Permian animals, as many were accustomed to very high oxygen levels. The Permian had at one point seen an oxygen percentage as high as 30%. Between burning to a crisp and choking to death, you may not have had the opportunity to acknowledge yet another pleasantry: radiation. The massive amounts of halogens being released caused severe chemical depletion of the stratospheric ozone layer, leading to massive spikes in ultraviolet radiation. Studies estimate that UV radiation may have ballooned by 400% at the equator, while polar regions could have seen an obscene increase of 5,000%. The oceans weren't safe either. Life on land got it rough, yet things were not much better in the water. In fact, marine life actually suffered worse. The waters got so heated during the volcanic activity that the average surface temperature rivaled the temperature seen in commercial jacuzzis. The oceans dealt with drops in oxygen, high radiation near the surface, and ocean acidification. This increased acidity was way worse underwater, as the oceans and seas absorbed more of the emissions, with studies indicating that in certain areas, waters were about 32% more acidic than today. The Permian extinction also had some sinister tricks up its sleeve, including hypercanes, super hurricanes. The idea is that if sea temperatures reached around 50 degrees Celsius or 122 degrees Fahrenheit, an extreme class of cyclone could form. While the average temperature didn't hit this threshold, fluctuations in hotspots very well could have, leading to the creation of hypercanes with sustained winds of over 800 kilometers or 500 miles per hour, fast enough to completely erase reinforced concrete structures. The aftermath. With all these problems, the Permian extinction was an absolutely terrifying and catastrophic event, made even more grisly by the notion that this all went on for thousands and thousands of years. When the dust finally settled, almost nothing remained. Some studies suggest that up to 96% of all species died, making it 10% worse than the second deadliest extinction we know of. Around 57% of biological families were fully eradicated. For perspective, the KT extinction, the dinosaur extinction, wasn't even close to as bad, as Earth only lost 17% of biological families. On land, the Gorgonopsids and many Therapsids were among the most iconic groups that died off. In the water, notable victims included sea scorpions and the well-known trilobites. Virtually every group that survived still took extreme losses, with the majority having experienced an extinction rate of over 95%. Ironically, despite most getting a bad deal, there were a tiny handful that actually benefited from it in the long run, namely the Lystrosaurus. Once the worst was over, it began to rapidly recover and diversify. Within a shockingly short amount of time, Lystrosaurus became the most dominant animal in the Triassic Pangaea, accounting for 95% of all vertebrates on land, a feat no other animal has ever achieved. Recovery ended up being an extremely slow process, as it took life approximately 50 million years to fully recover. For the entire duration of the Triassic, nature was still picking up the pieces. Things did eventually stabilize, and the world once again became a place filled with life, with the early Jurassic being about when you could no longer tell that a great catastrophe had taken place.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. See you in the next one.